My name is Nikolai Ssorin-Chaikov. I've got a PhD in anthropology from from Stanford University in the United States. I teach in the Department of History, and I do research in that department as well as in the research center, which is called Center for Historical Research. I've got quite a lot of research and research areas, but I mentioned just three. One is more historical. It has to do with something that I'm finishing. It's a research on gift giving to state leaders, to Russian and Soviet state leaders. The other one is more ethnographic. It has to do with the household economy today, in Russia today. And the third one is very historical. It has to do with the archival research of the early 20th century. It has to do with what I call topography of debt. It's about Siberia, and it's about debt that people accumulate during something quite exotic, which is called fur hunting. I wanted to be an anthropologist when I was a schoolboy finishing high school in Moscow, and this is why I went to Moscow State University to history faculty, to the department. At that time it was called ethnography department. Now it's called ethnology department. So I kind of decided to become an anthropologist, and after I did my undergraduate work there, I went to do a PhD in anthropology in the United States at Stanford University. Sort of went as far away as possible in order to understand how people do anthropology differently over there, what is specific about the ways in which they do anthropology, as opposed to how people do anthropology or ethnography in the Soviet Union then or later in Russia. After I got my PhD, I worked in Britain at Cambridge University for about 15 or 16 years before coming to the HSE in St. Petersburg. It's the question of both historical and anthropological research deals with difference. Anthropology deals with difference in space, how, for example, life in rural north in Russia differs from life in St. Petersburg or life in Moscow. And history looks at difference as well, as Leslie Powell's Hardley put it in an opening line to one of his novels, is the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. So historians ask, what is this difference in time, whereas anthropologists ask, what is this difference in space? Well, it's an exciting, relatively new program. It looks at global processes from, on the one hand, from historical perspectives. It looks at what are forms of global relatedness that developed in contemporary world, sort of roughly after the kind of European age of discoveries and the kind of age of empires and postcoloniality. But it also looks at these processes anthropologically. It explores what are social and cultural differences in contemporary global world, what are different notions of what people like to eat, how people cure themselves to get ill, how people spend, how people work, or what people do when they don't work, but comparatively in kind of a global perspective in different parts of the world. So it is simultaneously a historical program and has a track in history, or historical major, but it also has anthropological major, which looks at these kind of cultural and social differences in contemporary world. Well, if you're a student at the HSE, you have to do your own project. For example, every year, or in the first year or the second year of the Masters, you do a sort of research project, either, in this case, either in history or in anthropology. But people at the HSE, they also take part in research work in various research centers. For instance, we have the Center for Historical Research, which also includes a couple of laboratories that look at different aspects of historical processes, for example, ecological history, technological history, history of empires, history of justice, and so on and so forth. So his students take part in these research projects, being sort of research assistants or conducting their own sort of research. I think it's exciting. It's newer than Moscow campus of the HSE. It's smaller, which is very important. Here you have a kind of a sense of a small place in which you know personally most of your students or most of your colleagues, not just in your department or your research center, but university more generally. So I think the scale is very important. Then obviously the fact that this is St. Petersburg, a beautiful city with which combines absolutely fantastic historical stuff with a really interesting contemporary things that happen in kind of the way the city is run, but also it's really well connected to the rest of the country. So it's you're here, but you don't feel that you're isolated from other parts of from Moscow or from the Urals or from the Russian North, etc., etc. So it's simultaneously unique as well as well connected. And it's true for our program. We students come here and they take advantage of our archives and fieldwork locations in St. Petersburg, but they also benefit from very easy travel either to the Russian North or to St. Petersburg or to the Urals or to other parts of Russia. So it's a kind of a unique space with a lot of good connections that make travel easy and interesting.